Hiring excellence means to me that I've done everything I can to be a voice for the underrepresented, to guide them through the process, and to lead them to an offer.
Welcome to Offer Accepted, the podcast that elevates your recruiting game. Your host, Shannon Ogborn, interviews top talent acquisition leaders, uncovering their secrets to building and leading successful recruiting teams. Gain valuable insights and actionable advice from analyzing cutting-edge metrics to claiming your seat at the table. Let's get started.
Welcome to another episode of Offer Accepted. I'm Shannon Ogborn, your host, and this episode is brought to you by Ashby, the all-in-one recruiting platform empowering ambitious teams from seed to IPO and beyond. I'm so excited because I have a long-term connection here, but this is the first time we're really getting to collaborate. Kristi Kennebrew. Kristi is a super passionate advocate for the underrepresented communities and a LinkedIn content creator. She's dedicated to paving the way for marginalized individuals and motivated job seekers looking to enter into the tech space, which is so important. With 7 years of experience in tech at companies like Oracle, Google, that's where we came across each other, Microsoft, and Salesforce. She really understands what it takes to think outside of the box when it comes to sourcing and great local talent. So no longer does she sit behind a computer to find great talent. We are going outside. Kristi, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I thank you for reaching out.
Yeah, of course. I'm excited because I've been loving your content. Can you give the audience a little bit of a background of your most recent or current work?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Kristi. I go by Get Me Hired, Kristi. Okay, I got you. And I am the person that connects job seekers to their dream jobs. I started my career off in sales and made that transition. That's why I'm so big on transferable skills, made that transition over to recruiting. And so now I've been in the sourcing space for about 5 years now, currently really working on software engineers and just switched over to account executives, but being able to really find unique, diverse talent in those hard to reach spaces.
I love that. I love that so much. I know that you've spent a good amount of time in the space recruiting and sourcing. With that time in the space, have you really been able to identify any missing opportunities that recruiting teams should better optimize on?
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing for me is I can't sit behind a computer and source all day. I think there is a missed opportunity in that space when you're not going outside, when you're not going to conferences, you're not going to networking events, because not all of our great candidates are going to be on LinkedIn. One thing that I've noticed from my community, a lot of people fear being on LinkedIn. They don't think they belong on LinkedIn. And so sometimes we have to go outside and go to these events in order to make the connections and find the right candidate.
I love that so much. And I feel as a recruiter, I always actually loved going to conferences, being able to meet people in person, being able to hear the sentiment about your company in person and how excited people get to talk to you about an opportunity. That just always resonated so much with me. I don't know if that's how you feel too, going to in-person events.
Oh, absolutely. I think that it's something about having that one-on-one connection with someone. It feels a little bit more genuine. And also, I always put myself into the candidate's shoes. I was that job seeker that really needed to talk to someone, really needed to understand how was the steps of getting into a tech role. How was that happening? And I look at myself as someone that goes out to these different events. And even though you may not be a right fit for the role that I'm recruiting for at the time, I'm here to guide you and point you in the right direction when it comes to applying and trying to get into the tech space.
Absolutely. I have found that being able to coach people, like you've said, and be able to really encourage them about the application process at all of these companies and how you got into tech, like your personal story, it really is super impactful. And that's, I feel like, what can't happen if you're only on LinkedIn, if you're only reviewing applications, you don't ever get that point of contact. So I think that's awesome, but I would love to hear more about the why. Why is it important to focus on this or optimize on it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing is being able to find diverse candidates. You're not going to be able to find everyone just on LinkedIn. I think some of the key things that happens is you have these organizations out in the community that are building up and creating these spaces for people to get in contact with people, for people to be able to find someone that they can connect with within the space to help guide them into the space. At the end of the day, people are looking for jobs and people want to do stuff that they're passionate about. People want to do stuff that is life changing. And so I think it's super important for companies to look at these spaces as a way to be innovative, have new ideas, new types of people coming into the company so that they could better create or push their products.
Yeah, definitely. And there's just such a big importance of having someone in the field to actually represent your company in real life.
For sure. I think that's
Yeah.
one of the biggest things. And I think that's what we, as recruiters or sourcers, especially sourcers or a talent attraction partner, which is my current title, I'm attracting candidates to the company on behalf of the company. And so it's important for me to be a good representation for that company, even when I'm online and outside.
I think a really big part of this too is giving back to the community and being able to show up at events and sponsor events. Can you tell me more about how people should go about selecting places to show up or people to partner with?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it goes down to what roles are you looking to fill? That's going to be the first thing. What organizations do you have in your community or in your local community around you, around your office building that maybe you've seen at different events that you've thrown or different events that the companies have thrown? What organizations are out there that have the type of talent that you're looking for? Sisters in Sales, for example, is one big conference or thing that I would encourage all of our companies to go to because you're going to be looking for some salespeople. Everyone is looking for some sales. I'm looking for salespeople right now. And so I think that is a place where you should target to go and be able to find that type of diverse talent, and especially women. When we think about women in sales or Black women in sales, I think that's an area or a chance for you to go and find really true diverse talent to bring into your company to sell some of your products.
Definitely. Have you ever considered some things like which organizations have a big following or the types of candidates? Like, how would you personally, like, how did you come across Sisters in Sales? Like, how would you recommend someone actually go about researching?
Oh, absolutely. I would get in touch with whoever the organizer is. Think about, where did you see the marketing at? Did you see it within some type of group that you're a part of? Definitely get in touch with the person that is organizing it so that, especially if you're representing a company. So make sure you get in touch with the person that is organizing it and then ask for what are the proper steps to be able to either sponsor this event, be at the event, and be able to truly talk to candidates up close and personal. I think that's the main thing, is finding the point of contact so that it can be scheduled out really good and organized very well for you to be able to properly collect the information from candidates and move forward from there.
Yeah, on the note of organization, because ROI for an event, although a lot of us sourcers and recruiters like to go to these events just personally to help people, the company, right? They want to know, what is the ROI on this event? Did we actually meet the people we were supposed to meet? Did we get them in the pipeline? Did we hire them? How far did they make it? All of the data. What are some
Yeah.
considerations people should make up front so that they are enabled to be able to speak to that after the event?
Absolutely. I think that you should have definitely a statement, a mission statement of why you are going to this event. What is the goal? What are the types of candidates that you are looking to interact with here? So that is first, that's going to get you the money to go to the event, right? We need to figure out what the goal is. What is this? What is the problem that we are trying to solve? We're looking for more innovative, different types of candidates, diverse candidates to fill these different positions and see what else is out there outside of just the applicants that we have in the applicant pool. So that's the first thing. And then the next thing, you want to make sure you have some type of way to collect the data. Are you getting this information? Are you collecting emails? Do you have a barcode for people to scan so they can fill their information out and it automatically comes to you? That way, at the end of the day, you come back, you tell the company, hey, we've gotten all of this information from our product managers, sales, different engineers, and we're going to put it into the system and send the information to each team. That way they can go through and see if this is the type of talent that is able to fit through. So that is how you make sure you collect the information so that you have something to show and you actually have action behind it. Right. When you have that action and you're doing the proper steps to actually get these candidates into the interview process if they are fit.
Definitely. And I know that you've talked before also about speaking opportunities, having someone from your team,
Absolutely.
whether you be the relevant person as a sourcer or a salesperson from your team if you're going to a sales conference, an engineer if you're going to an engineering conference, really being able to have that speaking opportunity to attract people to your organization. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Absolutely. So I've been able to speak at many diverse tech conferences, and it has been one of the best things. And I've interacted with so many different candidates that come up to me and, hey, Kristi, I want to use my transferable skills. Hey, Kristi, I love your background. And I think it's unique. It's relatable to me. Can you teach me or guide me on the way that you went through your process to get into the tech space as a non-technical person? And so I think first things first, the person has to be willing to speak. The person has to be willing to share their story. And I know not everyone is meant to get on stage and to talk about their different experiences, and that's okay, right? But if you're open and you're willing to share your experience, I think going to these different conferences, applying to speak, or even if your company is sponsoring, being asked to speak at those conferences could really shine your story or show the light of your story, and someone else that is there can relate to that story that they have. And they're going to come up and ask you questions about how you got into the role that you are. What was your path? What was your non-traditional path? If it's a non-traditional path, and go from there. But I think that shows the candidates that we are real people at these companies, right? This is not just like a big machine running corporation. There are real people that have real stories, that have non-traditional paths. There are people that don't work in tech, that's not technical, that want to get into that space, or a non-technical person like myself that's in this space, learning as I go and growing as I go, teaching others as I continue.
Definitely. I completely agree. And I think what's really interesting about the speaking opportunities, it is that under the radar employer brand. People see you and they see a reflection of themselves in you. And so they're more interested in your organization because they feel like they are represented. They feel like someone gets them. In terms of considerations around employer brand, how else can companies show up in this way to increase or enhance their employer brand?
Absolutely. I think that this gives the company just a positive view. It shows that you have employees at your company that are willing to come out and represent the company. I think it gives the brand it shines the brand in a positive light. It makes candidates more willing to apply and come to your company, do more research about your company, and ultimately work for you. And so I think it does nothing but positive things for the brand, the company, and bringing you diverse talent or unique talent.
Definitely. And one thing I want to note, because we had talked about this before, is if you are going to these events and you collect the data, like we already talked about, you have to make sure that you reach out to everyone, even if it's not a match.
Exactly. I think that's the most important thing. I think that the first thing, and I think this is up to the recruiter or the sourcer as well, especially the person who is collecting the information. They usually take point on this, right? And so you have to be able to be like, hey, I've put all of this information in. And unfortunately, we have your information in the system, but you're just not a match for any of the open roles that we have at this time. But if anything was to pop up, then we will be sure to reach out. And I think that could just be just like a generic message that could be sent out in general, or you can have something very generic to be sent out as people are inputting their information. Hey, we'll get back to you, or just wanted to let you know your information is in the system and we'll definitely reach out if there is a match somewhere. So I think important to keep that communication going because they trusted you. They trusted you to come to this event and to be able to guide them and really show them a potential opportunity. And so if there's really not a match there, then I think it's good to show that or to tell that.
Yeah, you just worked so hard to build up your employer brand. You don't want to diminish that immediately by not getting back to people and not at least giving them a heads up that there's nothing for you right now, unfortunately, but we'll keep in touch. Or if you do see something you feel like is relevant, like always feel free to reach out because this could very well be the first touch point with that person in your organization, or the second because they met you at the event. But it can go south really quickly if you create a bad experience. So people who go to these types of events really need to make sure that they are doing the right things to activate afterwards, so that all of your hard work can continue to be lifted up instead of just straight down the tubes.
Absolutely. And it's on the candidate's part as well, on the job seeker's part as well, to be sure to make that connection. And I know we'll probably talk about this, but be sure to stay in touch, make that connection on both ends. And when it comes to the employer, I think communication and this idea that everyone hates right now of ghosting, even though I probably wouldn't consider this to be a true ghosting because you're not necessarily in the interview process, but having an open line of communication is going to be the biggest thing. And I think that is a key to having a good employer's brand, positive employer's brand.
Agreed. Agreed. I know that we've gone over from the company perspective why companies should why companies should show up, but I'm curious how this really impacts you as an individual.
Oh, for sure. And this is where I specialize in the networking piece. I've been working with a lot of candidates as far as networking on LinkedIn, but now that outside has opened up a little bit, it's a little bit of a transition when we start to network in person, and how to be ready and how to really make those in-person interactions when we haven't been making them in so long. And so I think this is really good. I love talking about this, but I think the biggest thing is when you're talking to someone, you want to have your elevator pitch. So whoever you're going up to, if you're going up to a recruiter, potentially a hiring manager that is there, or even someone that is in the role that you want to get in. So if you're an engineer, go to talk to another engineer, a senior engineer. You never know. That person can be on your interview panel. So you want to be able to have your elevator pitch. Make sure you exchange information. Everyone has a barcode on their LinkedIn to where they can go and scan, use the camera to scan. Should be quick and simple. Don't sit there and type their name in and look for their names. LinkedIn has gave us the access and the tools to be able to quickly scan and connect with people. And then you want to be able to do follow-ups, right? Be able to follow up with that person after they leave the event the next day, and ask for permission to send your resume. If you haven't been able to submit your resume yet, if there wasn't a place for you to submit your resume, ask for permission to send your resume. I think that's important. One of the biggest things I did want to talk about is what not to do. I want to say to candidates, do not ask for a job at a networking event. And tell me, Shannon, what you think about this whole idea, because I'm like, I feel like when we think about conferences, and this was like a lot of pushback when it came to Afrotech, people were expecting to get jobs on the spot or jobs at the networking events or the conferences. And I don't think those events are made for you to get jobs on the spot unless it is articulated ahead of time. It's there to build connections for future opportunities. And so that's just some of my suggestions when I think of candidates really interacting at these networking events, building up now, because networking is a long-term thing. Building up now so that you have that connection, maybe when you need to ask for a referral or the perfect job pops up later down in the future. What do you think about candidates asking for a job
A job on this?
are?
That I think is just a classic miscommunication. And I think, like you were saying earlier, you just have to be really clear about the expectations of people when you're talking to them. And I think, yeah, candidates should obviously also understand that unless you have a panel interview set up, typically you're not going to be doing an interview on site or getting a job on site, especially for knowledge worker roles where it's like software engineers or tech sales and things like that. Usually not just being offered a job on site. So yeah, I think it's just a situation that has occurred because people haven't been to these in several years. And so we've had a lot of new people enter the job market and try to make that change. There hasn't been opportunities to really meet people in person. I know when I went to my first in real life conference after everything was shut down from COVID and everything was paused because of COVID, I was like so awkward. I felt like I couldn't talk to anybody in person. I like didn't know what to do with my body language. So I get it, but this is a good tip for candidates. Like the point of going to these events is so that you can either get in the pipeline, so entered into a job pipeline soon, or really what's most likely the case is that you're connecting with people for longevity.
For
So like
sure.
you said, it's really important to make sure you're doing that follow-up because that's a point here. But I would love to hear your thoughts on showing up by yourself as an individual, as a recruiter or sourcer.
Yeah. This is one of my biggest things. I think I love going to networking events, and sometimes I don't have people to go with me, or sometimes it's just something I want to go to after hours, and it's not necessarily like on company's time. And so I think the biggest thing for me is when I go to these events, it's usually just like process steps, right? What are the steps to help me or to guide me to get into a company like this or like that, to into a big tech company? Or sometimes I actually meet candidates that are the perfect fit for one of my roles. And so it's perfect. Oh, let's connect on LinkedIn. You know what? I'll reach out to you whenever I'm back online, and we'll start to get the steps ready to get you on the phone screen and get you into the interview process. And I think that's the biggest thing. I love going to networking events, and I go to a lot of them by myself. I always try to bring a friend, but there's one big one here in Dallas called Mixer Cloud, and it happens like once a month, like the third Thursday of the month. And I'll usually just always go, and I'm always connecting with people. If I'm not just going to go and teach people or just advise people on the process or best steps or best practices, then sometimes I'm able to actually connect with people and put them through the process. I've met with a couple people and screened them to put them through the process from Mixer Cloud. And so I think that it's amazing. It's amazing the impact that you can have in as a sourcer, recruiter can help you stand out.
It's true. In our episode, an episode that's coming up, or I guess by this time, an episode that will have just aired, the person and I were talking a little bit about this and how a lot of times recruiters, sourcers, just all people, operations people don't realize the impact they can have on so many different people's lives.
For
Even
sure.
one life, you could change someone's job, or you could change someone's life completely with a job. And so showing up to these, I think, is a really valuable way, not only for the company to get great people to the pipeline, you as a recruiter to network and do all of those things, but it also builds your personal brand as a recruiter because you're showing up to spaces where the people you want to hire are, and they trust you because you've been able to identify this space as somewhere that's really positive for you to show up at.
Absolutely. I could speak to that 100%. When I go to these different places, I introduce myself as Get Me Hired Kristi. When you follow me or when you see me on social media, I have the hashtag Get Me Hired Kristi. And so that is the brand that I've been able to build. That I'm able to put people through the process and eventually get them hired. And so I think that it's important as sources and recruiters, especially within this time, to be able to build your brand up, your personal brand up, have you a hashtag. I love the idea of being able, people, recruiters or sources being able to have hashtags, and candidates, job seekers be able to follow you through that hashtag so they are able to see what jobs that you have available, what networking events you are attending, different things like that. And I also just wanted to speak on, I do truly think that we are changing lives. I think one of the biggest things for me when it comes to really being a sourcer, and I realized that I was in the right place, was when someone told me, "Hey, Kristi, I'm making the most money I've ever made." That was life changing to me. They have just gotten this job offer at this big tech company. They're going to be doing some of the most innovative work they've ever done. They're a diverse candidate and they're making the most money that they ever made. That's life changing, especially in this economy. And that's why I continue to do what I do.
Yes. I love that so much. Zooming out a ton, I'm really excited to hear your thoughts on this. When you think of hiring excellence, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I thought about this one a lot. Hiring excellence means to me that I've done everything I can to be a voice for the underrepresented, to guide them through the process, and to lead them to an offer. Everything I can to represent them in the interview process to make sure that they get a chance to interview. That is what hiring excellence means to me. Yeah, that's what it means to me.
Period.
Period.
Yeah, our next question is about hot takes, so this might be an early hot take for me, but I personally always took the approach the more that and are a voice for the candidate, the better you can serve your organization, the better your candidate and their preferences and their skills and their value, the better you can match them to an opportunity at your organization or elsewhere. That's the key to me for recruiting,
Sure.
representing the candidate so that you can serve your company as well.
Absolutely. I think that is truly the key. And I think that there's been this narrative that the recruiter or the sourcer is against the candidate, or we're hiding or skipping out on giving you information. That's definitely not true. The best way to get you hired is for us to be on your side and to really know you and your background and to be upfront and honest. And so I definitely 100% agree with that. We are your biggest advocate.
Exactly. I hate that there's a bad name made for recruiters in a lot of cases these days. Honestly, if I had to pin it down to one thing, I would just say it's most likely pure overwhelm of
Oh, for
recruiters
sure.
right now and what they're experiencing. But let's get to it. What is your recruiting hot take?
I would say there's been this whole big thing. Do I have to be an influencer to get a job? And like, oh no, well, here we go. There's this whole kind of thing that candidates are like, oh, if I don't have a big following on LinkedIn, am I going to be able to get a job? And I have to tell people all the time, and people listen to me. Some people listen to me, some people don't, because I do have a big following on LinkedIn. But I have to tell people, we've always had to stand out in order to get a job, right? That doesn't mean you have to have a big following. But that means you do have to do the extra steps of reaching out, especially now in this market, extra steps of reaching out, the extra steps of being able to get in contact with someone. Just remember, like when we were trying to get a job at the mall, when we were trying to get a job at Charlotte Russe, I remember I went into the store, got the application, brought it back, filled it out, and was like, hey, can I talk to the hiring manager? Are they here right now? And then personally hand that application over to them. That was a way of kind of standing out and being able to greet that person in person so that they know your face. It's the same thing. Now, can I say that having a following hasn't helped me get into certain doors? It has, right? So I can't say that, but you do not need a big following in order to be able to get a job. That's all I want to say.
Totally. Yeah. 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 The age of influencing on LinkedIn is quite an interesting one, I think, because there's so many recruiters on LinkedIn. Obviously, we live on LinkedIn.
For sure.
There's an inclination for everyone to try to go that route. And for some people, it's great and it's what they want to do. It's what they want to invest in. And for some people, it's not. And that's okay too. There's other ways to build your brand and showcase your value and skills that's not related to how many people are following you or following your content.
Correct. And just being a subject matter expert within your space. I think focusing on something that you absolutely love to do. I think that I've grown a big following because I love connecting with candidates, showing that I've been in the same shoes as candidates, having these really authentic stories that I've applied for hundreds of jobs before and have been denied hundreds of times before, which is the candidate experience. Even as a recruiter, I still get rejections. And I've posted my rejection emails to show people like, it doesn't matter how many followers I have, I've been rejected. I think that it's super important that you focus on what's important to you and that you do the things to stand out within your space. Those extra steps are really going to help you to land that role. And once again, you do not have to be a social media influencer to land a job in the tech space.
Definitely. I think we are coming up on our time. Where should people go to learn more about you and your work?
Absolutely. You can always follow me on LinkedIn. You can find the hashtag Get Me Hired, Kristi, or you can just type in Kristi Kennebrew. You also follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Get Me Hired, Kristi. That's another place where I share a lot of entry-level and transferable jobs to candidates that are looking in the job market.
Amazing. Kristi, thank you so much for joining us on Offer Accepted. I think this is going to be really valuable for internal recruiting teams who are looking to increase their presence at events and sponsoring events, and then also for candidates who are looking for a little bit of advice on how to get ahead when going to networking events as well. So I really appreciate you spending time with us today. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Offer Accepted, the podcast for ambitious recruiting professionals, brought to you by Ashby, the all-in-one recruiting platform. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow and share with your TA community. We'll see you next time.